welcome. So excited and happy to be here with you today. And this is another installation of Practical Creativity, where we unpack the lives and work of creative people so that we can actually understand how it works and apply it to our own lives and our own work. So today I'm super excited to be here with you with amazing guest, the wonderful Madeline Muñoz-Bustamante, who is so excellent and so creative in so many ways. So Madeline, over to you. Tell us just a little bit more about yourself and what you're up to right now.
Hi, everybody. So, my name is Madeline, and I have a couple of businesses. I am a shop owner, so I have a gift and stationery shop called Colorful Cute, which is online. It was, we used to do a lot of in-person events and pop-up events, but thanks to COVID, we are now just 100% online. And I also do coaching and consulting and teaching for other e-commerce business owners, and I help them out with e-commerce marketing and getting the word out, especially on social media.
Amazing. That is so awesome. So Madeline, tell us a little bit more about, you've become quite passionate. Obviously, your strategies business has come out of your work through what you've learned. You are one of the most dedicated, self-taught people I know. And you not only are really good at learning, but you're really good at actually articulating and sharing with other people what it is you've learned. And you found a particular passion for marketing. Tell us a little bit more about how you got into that, and of course, more about Colorful Cute.
Thank you. You're so sweet. So how did I get into it? So I got into it because I wanted to have my own business. And I wanted to have this little store. And but to have a business, you need to get the word out. And I actually thought I was going to hate marketing because I hate selling, like sales. And so I thought this was going to be like this terrible thing that I wasn't going to like. But as I got into it, I really started to learn how interesting it was. And I liked a lot of the psychology and stuff that goes into it. And I really became passionate about it because it was so hard to find good information.
So true. Oh my gosh, so true.
Yeah. So I kind of started picking up on it, and then I get excited and I share it with everybody because I want everybody to know all the good stuff that's out there.
Amazing. Amazing. That's so cool. So what exactly is it about marketing that you love? Like, why is that the thing, you know?
That's a good question. It's creative, and it's, again, there's a lot of human psychology in it, and kind of understanding how we think and how we act. It's also kind of, I get to know my customer really well in order to do really good marketing. And I really like my customers, so getting to know them better is really fun. But yeah, that was kind of like the main thing for me, was how interesting it was with the psychology, how much better I got to know my customers, and the opportunity to be creative and to play was also really fun for me.
Yes, the opportunity to be creative and to play. There's music to my ears in that, right?
I know it.
So that's something that adults don't really think much about. I mean, we think about playing sports and we think about kind of playing with our kids. I think it's obviously socially acceptable to play as an adult when you have your kids. But tell us a little bit about kind of what play looks like from your perspective as a business owner. I mean, marketing is inherently creative. You think back to like Mad Men and Madison Avenue and the big agencies, you think like marketing is all serious and comes with lots of charts and stuff, but it really does come down to play. So tell us a little bit more about your own practice and unpack that play just a bit for us, if you could.
So charts are really fun. I'm a chart person. But I think playing, the reason I call it playing is because, to me, what really clicked for me was marketing became a sort of game. And this is why the charts help. And it's kind of figuring out what pieces come together to make this new thing, and make something, and to get your message across better, right? Because we're always trying to get our message across. We're always trying to reach our people. We're always trying to have dialogue with them. And there's always a better way of doing it. There's a more effective way of doing it. And so it became a sort of game for me like to figure out how to do it as best as I could and how to reach as many people as possible, how to make it easier to reach people, right? So work smarter, not harder. And that's where play comes in for me. That's why, to me, marketing is all about playing.
I think that's amazing. And you have kids as well. You have also surrounded yourself with cuteness. So tell us a little bit more about like the person behind the business. Like, you have many shades to your personality, and you're just like, when I think about you, I think like this bright, shiny person. And of course, your business is called Colorful Cute. And, you know, there's just a sunniness in your personality. So just let us peek behind the curtain a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about that.
All right. So Colorful Cute, I'll give you a little bit of background on Colorful Cute. So I am a total 80s baby and therefore a straight up 90s teen. And I grew up with the geeky crowd. And so for us, the geeky crowd was all into comic books and animes and good old 90s anime. And so it was something I really got into. And especially the Japanese culture, Harajuku was coming out big time in the 90s, and I was fascinated by it. It seemed like such a great extension of like the 90s raver culture, which I was totally a part of. Yeah. And if anybody remembers 90s raving culture, it was like a lot of colors and almost like the candy and the toy feeling was out there. And that's always been a big part of me. I've always kind of thought of myself as a big kid who just doesn't really, you know, grow up in a good way. And so when it came time for the store, I wanted to go back to like that stationery stuff. I love stationery. I was that kind of little kid that loved the Hello Kitty store in Dadeland Mall. And I was really into it. And so I wanted to bring that back. I felt like that's missing. We don't have that kind of stuff anymore. It's really hard to find it. And I've learned so much about it over the years that it was just a lot easier for me to know like where to go, where to find it, what's good quality, what isn't. And so I started the store and I started going to the anime and comic conventions where my people hang out. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Colorful Cute. And it's contagious. My kids are all anime nerds now too. All right. So it's fun.
That's cool. That's cool. So I talk with a lot of obviously creative people, a lot of people in nonprofits, and communicating is really at the heart of any kind of good marketing. So I'm putting together a presentation for a group in Cleveland that I'm doing tomorrow. And I'm kind of walking through how you have to communicate. Communication is actually in a lot of ways like the pathway to success in my mind, because it's kind of like, you know what you do and people know what they do, but they don't know what you do. And they don't know what they know about what you do unless there's some sort of like connection there. So making the case for, I mean, these are particularly like artists. Why spend time communicating? And I just come back to, you are looking to grow. You can't grow without people. So communication is really the pathway to find that to start communicating with people. And I've learned probably more from you than anybody about the value of communications for a small business owner, even down to, you know, the 10 meaningful minutes of Instagram, and how to actually go about that is not just liking and scrolling, but actually starting a following can be about engagement. After all, it is social media. So tell us a little bit more about, you know, the social part of social media, and how social media, which you're so good at, has helped you to form relationships and deepen them with people, even on something as sometimes we think it's silly as social media.
Yeah, I'm obviously a huge social media fan. I'm an early adopter when it comes to tech in general. So social media has always been a part of my life back from the MySpace days. And yeah. And I think what's funny to me is a lot of people right now, especially Instagram is like the main social media platform, and Facebook for a lot of people. And a lot of people get really frustrated about the algorithm and like, the algorithm has ruined my business and the algorithm is so hard. And it cracks me up because I think what we forget is the algorithm is trying to be human. And the reason that you're still on Instagram, the reason that we still like Instagram is because of the algorithm. Because people kind of take for granted what's going on Instagram and the potential for it being a really crappy platform. And if you ever want to know the potential for it to be a crappy platform, go look at the accounts of the people you're following and go look at what they're actually posting. And you'll see what I mean, right? So the algorithm actually does a really good job of making sure that we are getting interesting content. And so, so it's about remembering that it's about socializing, and that really the best way to do well is to be human, not to try and beat an algorithm, just be your human self, right? And what do humans want? Humans want to connect. Like humans want to be entertained, but we also want to connect with each other. Sure. And right now, there's a really interesting phenomenon happening. A lot of people are going crazy on TikTok, right? And everybody's like, oh, TikTok and oh, TikTok and oh, TikTok. And the reason TikTok is so popular is because it's very uncurated. It's very unproduced. It's very raw. It's very sincere. It's very authentic. And there's also less content being created than there are users. The opposite is true on Instagram, right? Instagram is a whole other experience. There's more content than viewers, highly produced, very inauthentic, very curated, very unreal. And we know it. You know? So to get a good experience out of Instagram, I think it's up to us to show up as a human being in it. And that's why I teach people to do intentional Instagram. And if you only have the 10 minutes, you start with 10 minutes a day, and that alone helps you. And what that means is going in there with the intention of finding people who are like your ideal client, or like you, depending on what your objective is, people who would really benefit from what you've got to bring. And you let them know that you exist by interacting in their content, by diving in. And that's how we introduce ourselves today.
Right.
We introduce ourselves you can do a cute little double tap, but we all know that the ones that we really pay attention to are the people that actually leave the little comment. Yeah. And so doing that has really deepened my relationships. I have customers that are friends. They were not friends before. They came in as customers, but they DM me all the time. We have I know what's going on with their families. They know it's amazing. And all of this is possible because of social media.
Well, really social. And Mandykins 3 says she loves that point about social being human. So I also think that's really brilliant, because I think I've been a communications professional for many years. And one of the things that I am totally comfortable with is creating content. And I think as an artist, that's what you do. You produce content that faces the universe, and then people consume it. So this idea that you actually go in and research other people's stuff and then start commenting on their stuff in order to actually build not only visibility, but actually interaction and liking. I don't mean that I mean that actually finding rapport with people that you don't necessarily begin by knowing, but then who become friends, to your point, is actually the two-way communication. So it's not just coming and showing up at the party, but it's actually having that conversation during happy hour where you're like, who are you? Tell me about you. This is, oh, you do that? That's cool. Oh, do you know this person? So it's kind of taking that into the digital realm, but it's not just one way facing. So I think, and you know how it feels when somebody comments on a post of yours or, shares it, you're like, oh, they're really something about that. It really resonated with them. So I think that's really awesome to point that out. And also, I found your what did you say? Intentional Instagram, really, really helpful, because, it's the scroll keeps going. So you could lose yourself in there for hours, especially with all that's happening in the world right now. Sometimes I look down, I'm like, oh my gosh, 45 minutes has passed, just because
and what did you even accomplish? Right. And it's and I did nothing.
Yeah. And I think as a small business owner too, there's a push and a pull and interplay there of consuming enough to know what's happening, and then also building your business. And it's one thing when you're a small business owner and your brand is you, doing those things and supporting your friends and showing up and engaging with their stuff, but also being okay, now I put my business hat on and I'm going to do intentional Instagram to build connections with people. And I love what you said about like start with a customer, a person who likes and values the same kinds of things you do. I think sometimes when people start the communications, they start a marketing plan, they're thinking just like, okay, well, how do I sell? But like there's a human interaction that is kind of missing, because people buy stories and they buy connection. To your point, they want to support people who who are doing what they really love, and it's just easier for them to do that thing for you to do that thing than for them to do that thing. So there's like an alignment of values, and I think sometimes we market out into the abyss and we're not thinking about any specific person, but that just really helps ground you. Can you tell us more about kind of how you create the stories that you're sharing in order to not only sell, but also engage your clientele?
The best way to describe it is I make myself a fan of my ideal client and my ideal customer, essentially. Like that's the best way I can describe it. It's like I'm their number one fan, and I want to support them, and I want them to be like happy, or like, for instance, for the stationery business, I really want to like to fill their life with like a little bit of joy and fun and play. And I want to see them succeed at like finding everyday happiness and everyday joy. Right. So that's like, I'm their biggest fan. I'm the biggest fan of stuff that does that. Right. And so when I do that, when I'm sitting here to communicate, I think of that person, of like one of my best customers. And I'm like, how can I communicate with you, like to help support you in this mission of like having a really fun experience. Right. And then with strategies with small businesses, I'm the number one fan of female small business owners. And I am like your biggest fan, and I want to see you succeed. And so when I put myself with that mindset, like I'm your number one fan, I'm your top fan, and like you're the person I'm talking to, combining those two things really helps me like cut through the noise and get clear. And I think they feel it. I think they feel like that you're interested, that you are invested in their success or their joy or whatever you are. And it comes across that way when you constantly, come at it from that angle. So that's my thing is put on your fan hat, take off the business owner hat, and put on the number one fan, bring out the pom-poms and put yourself in that position. And then how can I best support this person?
Absolutely. It's like that 1,000 true fans. They say you need 1,000 true fans. Well, you start by being a fan of your own customers.
Exactly.
Because everybody wants to feel good, and they'll know, if you're coming at them that way. So I think that's a really nice spin on it. So every time I talk to you about ideas for campaigns, you're always cooking something, and you always have an idea that I'm just like, that is so creative. That is such a good idea. So how do you stay inspired? Because like selling is a never ending process, right? Like communicating is a forever process. So how do you stay inspired? And like, what is a recent example that you might have to share with us of that creativity?
I think the number one thing is I'm always learning. That's my number one thing. I am always learning, because there's, like I said in the beginning, there's always a better way. There's always a better way to do something that you're doing. And so I'm always learning, and I'm really inspired by the things that I learn, especially when they're coming from people who are doing really well. So I'm part of a couple of groups, and I learn a lot, and I'm inspired a lot by them. And like I would say recently, one of my big inspirations came from a course that I'm taking. And it just really helped me rethink my email list, and like how to use my email list, and how to speak to what my email list is for, how I want my subscribers to feel. And it really kind of just gave me a different way of looking at it. It made me realize that it doesn't have to be as stressful and as confusing and as crazy as I've been making it out to be for the past several years. And it just got me really excited to now I'm like excited about my emails. And I'm like, oh, wait, I had like this, there's like a whole opportunity here for me to rethink this, redesign this so that it's easier for me to do, and that it's more effective and like more in line with what my customers would want, Totally. So that's where I get it, definitely.
I think that's so helpful, because I think people really they feel the energy that comes through. If you're sending an email and you're like, I don't know, for some reason, that's the one that's like doesn't get as many opens or as much engagement. But email is probably the most powerful tool any of us has to connect with the people who care about what we're doing, what we're up to. So from your perspective, what is your approach to email, and how has your approach, I guess, changed? I know you've gotten some new ideas very recently. So share with us just a little bit more.
So my big thing was the realization that my email subscribers are basically VIP clients. These are my VIP customers. And if I were to sell a VIP membership, you'd pay like a fee to be a VIP, just like how we do with the airlines, right? We pay like this extra thing to be part of like the top, the first class and the business class. Same thing with they're paying me with an email address. And so I really started to think about how can I deliver this first class flying experience to my email subscribers? What are the things that I can offer my email subscribers so that they feel special and they realize the value in giving me that email address, you know? And then I've been able to like organize it in a little bit better way now. Now I'm really clear on what are the benefits. Because like sometimes we come up with an email list because we know we have to. We know we need the email list. We know we have to have it because you don't own anything else. You own your email list, but you don't own anything else. And so we know it, but we don't even, I'm amazed at how many of us don't even sit down and think, like, what's the purpose of my email list? Like, really?
So true. Yeah.
We know it's a way I got to keep in touch with you, but what does that mean? What does that look like? What's in it for them? Obviously, we know what's in it for you.
Right.
Cool. But what's in it for the customer? And so starting to think of it as like, wow, like how can I change this into a really VIP experience for them has really changed everything for me.
That's so great. And, I work with a lot of nonprofit clients and a lot of arts clients, and a lot of them are so focused on events and on like outward bound kind of things, like programmatic, like date, time, place thing. You're selling goods, and so, but you're also now selling services. So it's a little bit different, but I think the idea of thinking about your email clients, your email list as your VIPs and the people who are like on your inner circle, is sometimes we think, oh, well, 5,000 and above donors are our VIPs, but it's really interesting. Also, there's this pyramid of, donor cultivation. You start as this and you move, the goal is to move people up. But if we already start thinking about them as special enough to get the highest level communications, that's going to be a way to bring people along with you. But yeah, treating people on your email list, not as this is my news and this is my updates and this is like my outgoing thing, but taking that opportunity to make them feel really special is something that we don't necessarily think about if we're a nonprofit or with arts, or we're just looking at events-based kinds of things. So I love just that like change of mood and change of attitude in the way that we put our communications together. I think that's really special. So since you've made this change, what results have you seen? I think this is a case study. Like, share with us your results, Madeline.
I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, has been, number one, I'm seeing a higher click-through rates, and that's always good. And then I'm also seeing a lot more sales that are definitely coming from email. So whereas before I was seeing sales that were kind of hard to pin down, now I've made it so it's really easy to tell, like, they have to get my email. Like they're using a coupon that is exclusive to my email list, for example. Nobody else can get that. So I know all these people that are using that coupon, they're on my email list. So I'm seeing that. Before I didn't see so much like clear crossover. And I think the other big one is actually on my end, it's actually become a heck of a lot easier now, because I got so much clearer. Like I basically decided there are 4 types of emails that they're going to get every month. It's 1 a week. And I'm now able to easily create a template for that type of email. And it's just so much easier for me now to sit down and like say, okay, I can plan my emails 6 months in advance. and I can sit here and easily change it up so it's like still valuable, but it's just a lot less work, and it's a lot less stress, and it's a lot less winging it. And oh my God, I haven't emailed in 2 weeks. Like, I have to send them something. What do I send them? Right? Like,
Yes.
I don't have it anymore. I don't have it anymore, because it's now it's just a lot easier. Now I'm thinking about it like, what's the stuff I really want them to have? And interesting enough too, like, even though we do physical goods too, there's events when you have physical goods stores. We have sales, and you have new releases, all of this stuff too. So it's just a really interesting way of like looking at it and changing the perspective on it. But if you focus on like, how can I make you feel special as an email receiver?
Amazing.
And what's going to help?
Yes, perfect. And Mandykins 3 says personal touches really make a difference. It's very true. Laura on Facebook is asking, what email platform do you use, or would you recommend?
Email platforms are going to depend on your end game. I'm on MailChimp. I'm not thrilled with it. I will most likely be transitioning to Klaviyo. I just had technical difficulties in my transition, so it's on hold. Klaviyo is definitely the big one for e-commerce right now. MailChimp is a classic, but basically just do some research into your niche. There's different ones for that are pretty much designed for different kinds of things, and they're really good at it. So if you have e-commerce, Klaviyo is the big guy, but MailChimp works really well just to get you started. Honestly, don't overthink it. Okay,
I like that. Don't overthink it. We especially creative people, like we're so driven, and then we're like, wait, but on the business side, it's like overthinking it. And then I love what you were saying also about simplifying your email. So a lot of what I help clients with is like strategy for their communications, because not only do you have to communicate to have anything happen on like outside of yourself, but like being organized and structured for that is something that can be hard to do if you feel like you're inside, right? So being able to help people simplify 4 email templates, 1 email a week, like set it and forget it in terms of like, what kind of email are we having this week? Can you share with us? And I sometimes I listen to this podcast called The Creative Life or Creative Portfolio. Anyway, Jeff Goins, and he talks about like every artist needs, or there are like 4 kinds of email templates, like email newsletters, and here are the 3 that you need to do, or whatever it is. So for you, what do you think is essential in terms of those types of newsletters, types of email communications? What are you using now, or what would you recommend people start with if they're going to have 1 or 2?
I mean, so first I would go back into what's going to make your customer feel really special. Like what is really going to bring the value? So for example, I was just speaking the other day, I was on a coaching call with a graphic designer, and who does branding and all of this stuff. And we were brainstorming all kinds of things. And, you can make something like as simple as a done for you. So a done for you is basically something that you've done, and all they have to do is fill it in. So for a graphic designer, something really obvious is like a free Canva template, right? That's a deliverable. That's a monthly deliverable that your graphic design clients will be so appreciative for. Like, they'll be so grateful for it, and it's exclusive to them. And you just solved like a big thing for a lot of them. Like, now they've got a nice little template that they can use and they can incorporate into their arsenal. And you gave them the instructions on how to modify it for them. So something like that. So again, going back, like what is going to make your customer, like, 1, actually want to open the email? Like, what's actually going to get them like to look out for you? And then 2, like, what's going to get them to click? Because we want them to click to the website. We want them to click always click to your website. So I would go back and really think about that. For me personally, for the shop, for instance, it's the easiest one. That means that they get an exclusive coupon every month. Every month they get 1 exclusive coupon from me, because they're my best customers. So they buy from me the most, and I want them to keep doing that. And I want to reward them and give them a little extra goodie. They get 24 hours first access to all of my new releases. And for my customers, that's important. Sometimes my new releases are really small amounts, and they're like limited edition, and you got to get in and you got to get it. And so they appreciate that. And then another deliverable that I have for them is like a kind of how-to, or like a quick little tutorial, something cute and simple that they can easily make at home with some of the stuff that I sell or without it. something simple. And then the fourth one is 24 access to any sale. And that's just, like I said, same thing as a new release. It's important because stuff sells out. They want to be in first. So like those are the four things for a store that work. But it really, again, like, what do your customers value? Like, what makes it feel like a good deal for them? And then those should be like your four standard types of emails.
Yes.
You know?
Josie Rosato on Instagram is saying she loves that. So that's very cool. I'm thinking also about, like, if you were an artist, I heard yesterday about an artist who makes art out of like traffic tickets. And so you buy the art for the cost of the traffic ticket. And I think that's kind of like a way to obviously be cheeky and get known for a specific thing. But if you're a creative company and you are offering artwork for sale, think about even what you could do that is like an Instagram background or something like that. There are tons of ways that you can look at your own creative practice and use what people want from you that you have, that you're helping them and they're big fans. But thinking about something to treat them every once in a while. I think especially like artists, like we get so focused on our own practice, but really thinking about what excites your ideal clients about what you do, and just sharing a little bit of that creates not only goodwill, but excitement and engagement.
Yeah. And I think it's also, funny enough, the graphic artist, the same thing. She also sells artwork. And that was another thing she's got two clients. She's got her design clients and she's got her art customers. And her art customers, like, one of the things we came up with for her was like an interior design tip, because they're buying art for their home. So like, how do you do that? Like, what are some good ways to like combine color in your home? Like, how do you upgrade your home? How to update your home for a seasonal thing? Like, artists have great eyes. Sometimes it's like helping us non-artists look at the world a little bit differently. You can teach them a really simple little technique or whatever it is, or even just letting them in on the process. And like, nobody else knows this, but like, we know the story behind like an artwork piece that you did that was really powerful. Like, that's really meaningful to art customers. So there's lots of stuff that you can do. Just think about like, what is really special? Like, what is super special? What would you sit down and share with your best friends in that world? And then share it with your customers. They'd love to hear it. They really would.
Such a good idea. Also, I mean, art is all about process. So, I mean, you show up to the gallery and the paintings are not only like painted and framed and hung, or whatever the art is. Sometimes it's like pieces of rice on the floor, but it's been installed, right? There's that idea. Behind the scenes, you could show like the installation process. I think also for artists, like, people buy art and then they don't know what to do with it, especially if it's like unframed. They're like, do I frame it? And it just kind of like piles up somewhere, and because the thought of like doing it wrong is overwhelming. So I think even, if you're an artist or a visual artist, like, share with people how your work looks good framed and where you go to get your work framed. And then maybe show that person framing your work. I think if you're a musician, people are so curious about like what happens before the final scene, and outtakes are, I know, like, I'm a musician, like showing people the raw footage and not being perfect is like a terrifying thing, but it also helps you be human, and people actually like you more when they see that you're human. Going back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation. Yeah, right. I know, like perfect robots. It's like it's not that fun. I mean, you can go in the concert hall and hear that, but again, people want the story. They want to know you. So helping to do that is a great way to start. Okay, Josie Rosato on Instagram says she's a photographer and artist and wants to start getting into selling work. What's the best way to start? So Madeline, what would you recommend for her?
So I would first start by building the community. Right? Build your group. And you want to start by showing up and putting your content, but also by engaging in other people's content and finding that community, and being a part of that community and showing up regularly. And you can start as simply as selling on social media. I know a lot of artists that have so much success with this. It's insane. They put up the piece, they put, $75 DM to purchase, $150 DM to purchase, and they sell them. You could even start as simply as that. You can find other groups that are doing like group art sales, and you can join those. So you don't have to even make it super complicated to get going, but definitely building the community is the first step. Absolutely, for sure, 100%. And then bringing people in on that process. So a lot of artists do a lot of lives where they're drawing live. And I've seen artists sell pieces during the live. Like they're showing it and it's like, how much is that piece going to go for? Oh, this one will go for like 250. I want it. Sold. Done. Like it happens all the time. So going live is a great one too, especially for art people. I saw a musician who was going live, and she does a great thing where like she's a singer. So you toss out like a topic, and she would like impromptu sing a little verse about your topic. Like it's fun.
There's nothing more engaging than like taking requests from the audience, right?
Exactly.
Brings me back to growing up and calling into the radio station to hear my favorite song. Yes. So I love what you're saying. Okay, so artists, community first. We are in the studio. We're in the practice room. We are not used to getting our word out there. We're used to thinking about our art and doing our art. But start with a community mindset. Again, like relationships first, community first, which means showing up regularly and then also being sure to engage with other people. And it doesn't mean that your work is less. It actually helps people trust you, and it helps people who are following those other people like actually see that you exist and get more familiar with your work. So I know it's a little counterintuitive to think about like going to other people's places and engaging, but it creates a bigger buzz. It creates bigger visibility. So anything we can do to be communicating. And then the second thing is like show the process, like show people your work in creation, show them behind the scenes. We are so close to this stuff. It doesn't seem like remarkable, but like I'm an oboist, and like showing people, if I were, working on the music side, which I'm working on the consulting and coaching side, but people want to know how you make a reed, and it's the nerdiest possible stuff, but it's cool. really fascinating to know you can make an instrument out of, a piece of cane, right? Yeah. So, Madeline, what would you recommend if people were just starting and it feels so intimidating to go into email and to go into social media, and like, now there's TikTok and there's like a bunch of different platforms. What is your recommendation for like bare minimum? Because it can be very overwhelming, especially if you're already producing so much content in your own work. Like, where do people start? What is the bare minimum?
Okay. Bare minimum. I like to say that bare minimum is one social media platform and an email list, just because like we were saying, you never own your social media following. And I have seen time and again, and it's horrible, but I've seen social media platform and accounts just get shut down immediately, like without warning. And big ones. I had a friend that had like 30,000 followers and no warning, taken down.
What?
So you don't own them. You don't own them. So right. at least set up an email list, like a landing page with an email list that you can send people to. You don't even need a website. You can see the landing page to collect those email addresses. And then just pick one social media platform that you like, that you're naturally that you're in anyway, whatever it is. If you are on TikTok all day, make it TikTok. If you're on Instagram all day, make it Instagram. If Facebook is your jam, make it Facebook. The one that you're already more comfortable with, because it's just way easier to get started. And try and just be like consistent. And that means not just that you show up consistently, but also that your messaging is consistent, right? So if you're like, you might want to pick like a theme for your month, and that gets discussed in your emails, and then it gets reinforced in your social media. Right. I think that's the important part. Just pick one platform and just show up consistently. Give it the time that you have, but make it intentional. And then just keep sending people to your list.
That's so good. And that's so helpful because again, like if you're focused, you can be more strategic and showing up. Okay. So we show up in the practice room, we show up in the studio, we show up on the mat, whatever it is that you do creatively. We show up at our PC in the morning or whatever. But if you're developing relationships, and you don't ever see the people you're trying to have a relationship with, then you're not really in a relationship, right? You're you're in a one-way thing, which is fine. But if you're trying to grow and get more abundance into your business or into your creative life, you got to show up and keep it simple. So start with one platform and an email list. So that way you have a little bit of buffer. And also with email, like I know when I was at New World Symphony, it was definitely our number one traffic source. I think something like 70 to 80% of our sales came from our emails. We send a lot of emails, but we had all sorts of different lists. So also don't feel like you need to send the same message to everybody. Again, that's like a little more 2.0, but just knowing what is the message and then staying organized and having one theme maybe per month that you explore through your various channels. I have simplified my messages creativity because that's what gets me my heart racing, and that's what I see helping clients. So but you can't really get it wrong. And also I think there's a fear, especially from creative people, that you're going to put something out and it'll be like shocking, or it'll be a failure and it will be humiliating because there was a mistake. Or I think like this is the time when you're communicating, perfection has to go away in order for people to actually connect with you. So give yourself a window of time and allow yourself to just show up imperfectly, but to show up. Because the worst thing that happens is you choke on that post because you can't figure out what to say, or you don't think it's perfect, and you lose an opportunity to connect. So be human, right?
Yes, just be yourself. And honestly, like, it's funny, the more you try, and like sometimes it kind of blows up too, where like you try and make the most perfect thing ever, and you put all the time and everything, like I've got it, and it's the one that flops. And then the one that you're like, this is going to be terrible, but it's whatever, it's the one that does really well. So like you don't leave your assumptions aside. I think that one thing I wish I had learned a lot earlier in my business is to really zip it and like let your customers lead you to the proper plan. Like really listen to your customers. And that means listening also means observing, like pay attention to what they're doing. What are they interacting with? Like stop putting your assumptions on your own stuff and like literally let the customer show you. Don't be afraid to test something. If it flops, it flops. Try something else. But let the customer show you. Don't go in there with like all of your preconceived notions and everything, because you're going to be wrong.
Right.
And again,
like you said, learning is where your creative spirit comes from, because anytime you communicate, you're always learning, right? And right now you see so many people waking up and learning about things that they never ever thought about before. And it's exciting to watch. But like, also, I think the idea of being relentless with your fascination with people and showing up, right, is don't be discouraged, especially if you're like in an event-based business, you're a musician, you're an artist, you're looking to make sales. They're not going to convert after one time. So don't give up because you don't think that you didn't get your results. This is the biggest mistake I see with my nonprofit clients. They send one email and they didn't sell tickets to their thing, or they sold like 16 and they wanted to sell 600. It's a muscle. You got to keep it working. People forget and they're inundated with information. So it's okay to send more emails.
I think too, the number is really important. Like, I think we overestimate what, like, just so people understand, e-commerce conversion rates are often 1%. Yeah. Think about that. Like 1% of the people that come to your website in many very successful websites, it's 1% are the ones that are going to actually complete. So like, it's really a numbers game.
There's a lot of touch points you need to reach a lot of people.
Yeah. There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah. And Laura is saying dropping the perfectionism is so scary. I think definitely it's one thing to go out on stage and have it be done, but then to have a thing that people see and can like look at later. But that's another thing, is there's so much quantity happening around. Like give yourself some opportunity to mess up and just learn, to fall in love more with your customer and have them fall in love with you. So yeah, I know it's scary, but it's also part of the journey, and it can be fun when you actually start to let go and see that people are actually engaging when you stop being so guarded and perfect. And this is something I recently learned myself. So it's a journey, people.
It's practice like anything else. I'm telling you, like, I think of you, like professional musicians who like go out and perform on stage. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. And as somebody who used to do theater back in the day, like I remember it was terrifying. Did it get better the more I did it? Absolutely. Do I have any issues jumping on the stage now and talking to a bunch of people? No, it wasn't like that though. Like I got there. It's the same thing. It's like you're going to screw up. You're going to mess something up. The painting's not going to work out. The piece is whatever. Something's going to break. It happens. Like it's fine. That's what people want to see anyway.
Yeah. It's so important. It's so important. But that's the thing. Like, I don't know, there's something when it comes to actually figuring out what to say that is then like, how do you talk about your work? That's a whole other live that we could do, I'm sure. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Madeline, I could talk to you forever, and sometimes we do, and it's so good. But thank you so much for being with us. I love learning from you, and I know that our community does as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how your email list grows, and hopefully everybody else's does out there. If you have any questions for Madeline or for me, you can pop them in the comments. We'll also be setting up a YouTube link to this interview, and we'll have all the places to find Madeline and join her email list so you too can be a VIP with Colorful Cute and learn more about strategies. So excited about that. And Madeline, thank you so much for being with us, sharing of yourself, your knowledge, your incredible enthusiasm, all the cuteness, and of course, your creativity. So
You're
with that,
very welcome. It was my pleasure. It was fun.
thank you so much. Okay, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of the week and stay creative.